Good Saturday morning to everybody. Happy third week of the college football season. Welcome into the Auburn pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone Eli alongside Nubyjas Wilborn, the Auburn beat reporter for AL.com. Nubyjas, this is a big one. This is the one that everyone has circled. Week 3 of the season for Auburn. It's the 2:30 SEC on CBS game of the week. Auburn hosts Penn State at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Nubyjas, this is the one that everyone has circled on their calendar. This is the one lots of folks have talked about coming into the season. Just your overall thoughts on this matchup to start today.
Well, I mean, first of all, man, shout out to the Penn State fans. They've been down in Auburn for the last couple of days, all over town doing their thing. But this is the type of game, I was walking around downtown and kind of had like a little bit of a bowl game kind of feel to it, as far as just so many people being out and about and visiting the restaurants and hanging out. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like once I leave and get ready to head over to Jordan-Hare myself. And I'm looking forward to just really taking in the atmosphere. But, yeah, it's a big game. I mean, Penn State's number 22. Auburn has 2 wins, kind of lackluster wins if you look at the score in the San Jose State game, right?
Sure.
So now this is an Auburn team that has an opportunity to put itself amongst the top 25. You figure they could be the top 25 team undefeated, then maybe they look good. A loss here is a big-time setback. Consider that the coach is on the hot seat.
Yes, no doubt about that, Nubyjas. When you talk about game atmosphere, I think back to this game a year ago. It was at Penn State. It was the whiteout. The crowd was absolutely rocking. I think Auburn obviously trying to kind of mimic that now that the game is on the plains with the orange out, orange face mask. A lot of folks were, hoping, or some folks hoping, some folks saying no way when it comes to orange total uniforms. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's going to be exciting regardless. I know it's going to be a great atmosphere in Nubyjas with the orange out today.
Well, no, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how it is because oddly enough, I was covering Penn State last year at this time. It was really my last game on the Penn State beat before switched over, started covering Auburn with the Ole Miss and LSU games, so on and so forth. So it's kind of seeing it from both sides. But, yeah, it was a very raucous environment. That stadium, Beaver Stadium, gets to rocking. 110,000 people, Auburn seats 85. So that's going to be a little bit of a difference. I mean, about 40,000 people difference, but also Auburn Stadium, you're right on top of it. Okay. That's going to be a very unique environment. Last week, and James Franklin even noted this, Penn State's coach, hey, Auburn was able to get 2 false starts against San Jose State. San Jose State had the ball on the 1 first and goal, ended up kicking a 35-yard field goal.
Yeah.
That's those false starts going into that south end zone where the student section is, because it's right on top of you. That is a different type of noise, a different type of intensity. Yes. So we'll see how that goes this week for Auburn because, the noise was a factor last time.
Yes, certainly was. Auburn, I think they're kind of their blessings to be at home, especially as they're kind of trying to figure out this 2-quarterback system, Nubyjas. I'm wondering, I think lots of folks are wondering, is this working? Is this sustainable? What is the future look like when it comes to the quarterback situation on the plans right now? Obviously, TJ Finley, the quote starter when it comes to actually, rolling out there, who's going to actually take the first snap. Ashford taking meaningful snaps. Last week's game was not exactly what you'd want to see against a very inferior San Jose State opponent, Nubyjas. How concerning is this situation right now that Bryan Harsin is facing and dealing with?
Well, it is very concerning. TJ Finley came out. He threw the 1 interception. He has 3 interceptions so far. But what I will say with Finley is what he did after the interception.
Yeah.
He went like 12 of 15 with 158 yards after the interception. Ended up having a pretty good day. Robbie Ashford led the team in rushing. However, he had 1 passing yard.
Yeah.
1. I didn't know that was possible, but it happened somehow, particularly when you have several pass attempts. And Robbie Ashford also threw an interception.
Sure.
So one of those guys got to step up. Basically, this game's really a lot of it's going to come down to can the quarterback combination of Ashford and Finley, however it goes, compete and hold up against Sean Clifford, who's going to be the Penn State quarterback, who last year really dinked and dunked Auburn to death last year.
No doubt about that. Obviously, Bryan Harsin has alluded to this type of 2-quarterback system working at previous stops. Is this the sort of thing that you think is sustainable at Auburn and in the SEC when Auburn starts to get into the nitty-gritty of the conference schedule?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I mean, because I haven't really seen it much. For instance, Ole Miss right now, they're having kind of quarterback issues, and Lane Kiffin, their head coach, said no, he wants one quarterback.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it is. So this is new, this is unique, and I will give them credit. Hey, listen, it worked at Boise, maybe it'll work here. I don't know, but it'll be fun to find out. I think we're gonna find out, and it's kind of wild because you still have Zach Calzada somewhere in the mix.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a good point. Still waiting to see Zach Calzada. When it comes to Auburn's rush game, regardless of who is taking the snaps, we know that the backfield has been super beneficial to whoever's at quarterback, to this team so far offensively. Auburn averaging 247 on the ground when it comes to Jarquez Hunter, Tank Bigsby, what they've been able to do with their offensive output. Nubyjas, how helpful has this been? I think it cannot be overstated.
Oh, no, it's been huge. I mean, you need that running game going. You need to establish run, particularly for Harsin offense, especially when you have a young quarterback. A quarterback who you may not be as certain about. Tank Bigsby, one of the best running backs in the conference. Jarquez Hunter has been solid. Also, don't forget about the freshman Amari Alston, who actually had a big 35-yard run last week. And then, of course, I mentioned Robbie Ashford. You got him. He can talk the pill as well. So, really, Ashford will be part of Auburn's running attack. So, this is going to be big because if the run is going well, it then sets up the play action, which makes it a lot easier for Finley or Ashford or whomever's throwing the ball. So This is how Auburn wants to win. They want to build a game on the run and then go from there. And they can tote it. The offensive line is going to have to uphold against the toughest offensive line they faced so far with Penn State led by P.J. Musper, those guys.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of comments on Facebook, YouTube. We appreciate the comments. One from Bonnie Ramirez. She says, playing at Jordan-Hare may be the only thing going for us in today's game, but it's something. Bonnie, I love that spirit. With Penn State favored to win, we'll have to play harder, and that is the truth, Nubyjas. I don't think that sometimes this is overlooked when you are a fan in the SEC. I think sometimes you forget how much teams want to beat teams in the SEC, especially on their own turf. How big of a game will this be for Penn State, currently ranked 22nd in the country? And even though Auburn is not necessarily the best team in the SEC right now, as you saw with Texas A&M, one of the top-ranked teams in the country last week, get upset by App State. But when teams can beat teams in the SEC, it's just like a little exclamation point on the season, regardless of how the rest of it turns out.
Well, I mean, but also this is a Penn State team that hadn't been to a Big Ten title game since 2019. There was that run 2016, 2017, 2019 where James Franklin was getting to the title game and going to big-time bowls.
Yeah.
2020 was a kind of a fall-off year, and 2021 wasn't really that great. And so this is a point now for them where they want to get back to a level of being neck and neck with Ohio State. Michigan kind of surpassed them last year. You have Wisconsin in the league. I mean, the Big Ten is a good league, okay? And I know it's not the SEC, but it is a good football league, ladies and gentlemen. And but also Penn State wants to be good too, and they want to repeat what they did last year. Because a lot of the Auburn players are like, hey, we owe them one, they got them one, and Penn State's like, well, we could beat you again. We want to come down there and beat you in your house. And that's the thing. They're the first big team to ever come down here. So it's going to be interesting of itself. Penn State wants this game too. Yeah. And they need it because, again, it's also for Sean Clifford. Mentioned him earlier. He's a quarterback who has had some struggles, who is trying to define his legacy. These kind of games are legacy defining potential.
No doubt about it. Guys, if you're just tuning in, this is the Auburn pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. Auburn kicks off against Penn State at home. It's the 2:30, the first SEC on CBS game of the week of the season. So this will be a big one, guys, the 2:30 time slot. When it comes to Penn State, Nubyjas, obviously you're pretty familiar with this program. They're 2-0 on the season with wins over Purdue and Ohio out of the MAC. What is going well for this team? Sean Clifford, like you mentioned, struggling in moments. What is going well for this program right now? And what does Auburn need to be concerned with the most?
Well, talking about the run game, they got this kid, Nicholas Singleton, really top-level running back who had a baller performance against Ohio. He's a young freshman, and he went for 147 yards. Seems to be legit. Penn State really hadn't had that bell cow running back in quite some time, but this guy might be it. So looking for that. But also, Joey Porter Jr. leads a secondary that is a very solid secondary. And again, Auburn's already had issues completing passes. I mean, they hadn't had a 250-yard passing game yet. Yeah, that's playing against Mercer and San Jose State. Well, this one of the best secondaries you'll see all year. So those are going to be two things you have to watch out for in this ballgame.
Yeah, let's chat about the Auburn defensive line. Penn State averaging almost 500 yards total offensively. Obviously, getting pressure on the quarterback going to be a big part of the Tigers' success today. Stopping the run, like you just mentioned. How significant is the output on this side of the ball when it comes to what Auburn needs to what we need to see from Auburn here in week 3 of the season?
I mean, it's huge because these are the types of things, again, when your quarterback is maybe struggling, you have to be tight on defense. You cannot allow Sean Clifford to get loose. I mean, last week, San Jose State had 275 passing yards. Now, again, some of that was later in that game, but also you got to remember, San Jose State had the lead at half and then had another lead in the third quarter in that game before Auburn finally finished them off. If you do that against Penn State, it could get ugly. So you're going to need that defense to figure out a way to create some turnovers, get off the field on third down to make it easier on the offense. But, of course, with complementary football, the offense can't just go 3 and out all the time, keeping the defense back out there either.
Yep, no doubt about that. Appreciate the comments that we're getting in. Jamie Saxon says, run the ball. That's all we have to do. Obviously, Auburn is, when they're successful running the ball, we've seen Auburn programs in the past have a lot of success. Renee says it's going to be difficult, but I believe in our team. A 2:30 kickoff on the Plains. Nubyjas, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse when I talk to you about this every single week, but how big of an opportunity is this for Bryan Harsin? Judging by the ups and downs of this offseason, just the not atmosphere, but just the way things are sometimes at Auburn when it comes to the pressure on head coaches, like we've seen in the past, like we've seen put on Bryan Harsin already now only in year 2. How big of an opportunity is this for Harsin when it comes to just, getting it done and really proving, hey, we can contend with some of the best in the country?
I mean, well, it is huge. I mean, this game won't get them off the hot seat, okay? Like, if they win this game, they won't stop. The people who are anti-Harsin aren't going to totally change their mind. However, if you lose this game, you just make it worse. Yeah. Now, listen, I don't really go around pitying people who make $6.5 million a year, okay? I mean, he'll make more money this season than Pat Dye made in his entire career. Yeah. All right? So it's kind of hard to feel sorry for him. However, this is quite a precarious situation because even a win doesn't silence the whispers. Sure. But a loss makes those whispers become yells. So, it's a must-win game.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's a must-win game. It is because you need to also win this game. Plus, don't forget, there's a big Board of Trustees weekend this weekend. You have about 75 to 80 recruits in town that they're really trying to get to come to Auburn over the next few years. So you need to have the atmosphere combined with a win, get a few signees. So there's a lot of things that Harsin has to do. They got to see an uptick in recruiting. They also have to do it on the field, and they could start that process in a few hours here. A loss sets it back further, and people get to yelling. And people know what happens when we get to yelling at Auburn.
No question. No doubt about that. Nubyjas, this is also the last final tune-up, if you will. I don't really want to call it a tune-up because this is not like Alabama playing La Monroe before you go into the SEC schedule. This is Auburn playing Penn State. I mean, this is a significant game, a top 25 team coming to the Plains. But this is the last game before Auburn begins the conference schedule. And that has to matter in some regard when it comes to the games that really matter most when you get into the nitty-gritty of your conference schedule.
Well, I mean, it's big because next week's Missouri, but also just the third of 5 home games. Before, you know what that road game is, right? And the defending national champions, the UGA. Yeah. And then after that, you go to Ole Miss, okay? So you need to make hay in these games. This is the game you want to get with Missouri and then LSU coming to town. So, this game matters because, again, it's more than the tune-up. I mean, this is how you define your season. This is how many wins will be enough for Harsin to keep his job. And I don't know that number, but I tell you what, it's a lot easier to get this win.
Yep, no doubt about it. Again, some great comments here from Cody Ritchie. Says Penn State is a good team offensively. As for being flawless, we will win this game because we are at home, the electric crowd. We talked at the beginning of the show, Nubyjas, about how big of an atmosphere and how much Jordan-Hare Stadium can play a role in the success for this team today. I know you're going to be down on the Plains. This is something you're looking forward to when it comes to big game atmosphere.
Oh, I'm excited. I mean, this is why we do this, Simone. Like, this is why we don't do it for the salary, I tell you that. But
Amen.
But but seriously, these consequential games, ones that matter, games that people are talking about. This is why we do this, and plus it's a unique matchup with you get Penn State coming from where they're at, coming down south. Last year, Auburn went up there, and I tell you one thing, I think they had an easier time getting here than people had getting up to State College. But it's a whole other conversation. However, to just get to it, no, this is the type of thing you want to see how the Penn State fans react to, Independence Day, War Eagle coming down, doing the whole thing, and just all the traditions, all the things, the Tiger Walk. No, it's going to be great. It will matter because, again, Auburn had to deal with the hostility up there with 107,000, 110,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
Now they got to come down here and be around these 87,000 people that are going to be very heavily Auburn. It's going to be a wild, wild night. Afternoon. It's going to be hot, too. Don't forget about that.
Warm. No doubt about it. Y'all get some water. Take some water on the planes with you. It's going to be a warm one. It's not quite fall yet, although I feel like we've seen glimpses of fall weather. But my husband's not allowed me to cook chili yet, so we're not quite to the cool weather of the fall season yet. Guys, looking around college football, in the SEC specifically, Georgia will kick off today in conference play, 11 o'clock. Any games that you're keeping their eye on, Nubyjas, today?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I'm interested in seeing what happens with how Texas A&M comes back off that really tough loss against Appalachian State playing against Miami. And plus, Miami's a good ball club. So I'm curious to see what Texas A&M does. Can they get it back together? Can they win some games? If not, it can get really weird for Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, it's already getting kind of weird over there. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff there at Texas A&M. Guys, this has been a great show. Nubyjas, we appreciate all of your insight. Talked a lot of things, Auburn football leading up to today's game against Penn State. This is really the one that a lot of folks have been talking about. However, Auburn hasn't been flawless in the first 2 weeks of the season. A lot of concerns, a lot of things that folks are kind of question marks, I guess, for Brian Harsin going into week 3. I think we would have hoped to have maybe some more answers than questions at this point, especially when it comes to the quarterback position. Nubyjas, any final thoughts before we kick things off here?
Well, like I said before, this is going to be one of those games you want to see if TJ Finley and or Robbie Ashford or Calzada, whomever, can become the Auburn starting quarterback that can win games against big teams. Plus, Auburn hadn't beaten a top 25 team since last year against Ole Miss. It is time for Auburn to correct that if they're going to go forward.
No doubt about it. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. This is the Auburn pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. For Nubyjas Wilborn, I'm Simone Eli. We will see you for the postgame show. Enjoy kickoff 2:30 on the Plains. Have a good day.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart of healthcare.